Eliminating Stress, Module 6, Us, a 3 principles based presentation. Copyright David Philip Kromke, 2024. I want to discuss our experience of life and factors that affect it, and I'll discuss them in the most basic way I know how, in order to keep the discussion simple and helpful. First, I want to simply divide up the thoughts we think into positive and negative and leave it at that. That's about as basic as it can get. In keeping with that, I'll divide awareness of thought into categories, aware that we're thinking and not aware that we're thinking as well. I do this because there are, in fact, times when we're not aware that we're thinking. For example, we reach for the coffee and knock it over because we didn't realize we were thinking about an article on a web page. Using these categories gives us a small matrix you see. As we proceed, we'll put either a plus or minus sign in each box to state that our experience of life is either positive or negative. So let's start with having positive thoughts and being aware that we're thinking. My wife is an interior designer and loves to come up with great ideas that improve a home's appearance. This box, in a lot of ways, represents us thinking about and doing useful work that we enjoy. Here, the experience of life is positive. Now, what about that second box where we are aware that we're thinking and we're thinking negative thoughts? It turns out that the experience of life here is positive as well. When I was young, kids learned a song that went, "Great big gobs of greasy grimy gopher guts, little birdie's dirty feet, mutilated monkey meat." That definitely fits the form of negativity, but my friends and I thought it was hysterical. We loved it. Young boys seem to be experts in this area where they try to get a rise out of their parents or others by talking about various bodily functions. As teenagers, we learn sick jokes. It's a thought exercise. We are aware of what we're thinking. Even though the form is negative, we're having a positive experience. On the other hand, parents who did not recognize the thought exercise going on got bothered by the thoughts, the songs, sick jokes, and talk of bodily functions. They were bothered by the negative thoughts which they took seriously and may have worried about their son's state of mind. Their experience of life was negative, so put a minus sign in the lower right-hand box. The last box is where we have positive thoughts but are unaware that we are thinking. An example of this is when we say, "How are you?" to someone, and he says, "Fine," but it feels more like he said, "Don't bother me." It comes across badly. We know he's having an experience of life because he's alive and thinking. So even though the form of thought is positive, the experience of life is negative. Now we can see that what makes the difference in our experience of life is not what we are thinking, but whether or not we are aware that we are thinking. Well, all of us go through both positive and negative experiences in life. So the question we need to ask is, how is it that we switch from one mode to the other? I mean, one moment we're aware that we're thinking and enjoying life, and in the next moment we're miserable. What happened? There's a school of thought that I would call blame and guilt, which holds to the idea that we're to blame for getting ourselves into that situation. This is truly not the case. You see, negative experiences in life have an impact when we're not aware that we're thinking. Saying that we're to blame for our negative experiences implies that we know what we're doing. However, if we know what we're doing, we must be aware of our thinking every step of the way. And if we are aware of our thinking, we're going to have positive experiences. We could never get to being unaware of our thinking that way, so we're not to blame. However, we still get troubled from time to time, unaware of our thinking. And if it can't happen deliberately, it must happen in innocence. So have compassion. Give yourself and others a break. Take the pressure off. We all get troubled, but it happens in innocence. To the extent that we understand we're thinking, we have a positive experience of life. As we pass through life, we encounter thought which is optional and reality which is not. To the degree that we consider thought to be real, we struggle. A good indicator of mental health is the ability to distinguish reality from thought. We may get stressed about an approaching deadline at work, but being in a lower state of mind means we'll have less productive thinking. We'll have a harder time meeting the deadline. Worries about the future or the past are just passing phantoms that will only get in the way if we engage them, so don't. Mathematics has a term called corollary, which means a proposition from one already proven. My corollary is that which we fail to recognize as thought is regarded as reality. Most of us recognize that thoughts are optional while reality is not, and we're stuck with it. In this course, you are learning that deeper levels of understanding reveal that things once considered to be real are just thoughts. For most people, the thought, life should make us happy, is considered true and real. Believing this leads to all kinds of mental illness. Recognizing it as a thought provides relief. Finding out that we have been born with the happiness we seek makes that thought absurd. It's usually hard to use logic to argue people out of their dysfunctional states of mind. This applies to ourselves as well. People are doing what they can to mitigate suffering given their states of mind, and trying to alter what they're doing is seen as threatening because the logic at that level of understanding makes sense to that person. Here's an example. A man encounters another man sitting on a park bench, shredding up newspaper and scattering the shreds in all directions. He asks the man on the bench what he's doing, and the reply he gets is, "It keeps the elephants away." The first man says, "Why, there could be an elephant within 100 miles of here." The man on the bench replies, "Yep, it works very well." See the logic as representative of his states of mind. Then, instead of wrestling with that state of mind, lighten the feeling present, which will raise and broaden the outlook and introduce the possibility of seeing things differently. I've had many patients find the answers for themselves as the process unfolds. This carries so much more value than me telling them what to do. So our learning objectives are, one, distinguishing thought from reality. Now that could be as simple as thinking you had a doctor's appointment, but it's actually tomorrow. Understanding human innocence and compassion as well, because when you see innocence, you automatically feel more compassionate. And understanding a bit about facilitating change. Next, we'll step through a number of examples of life experiences as viewed by this deeper understanding.